Well, welcome back to the Anti-War Room. Tom Andrews here. In our newly named website, we have gone from movecongress.org to StandUpCongress.org, and that is because there was a lot of confusion among our media friends, confusing movecongress.org with moveon.org, and not that we don't want to be associated with moveon.org, because Move On is part of the Win Without War coalition, but we thought it might be better to minimize the confusion and do what we want to do with Congress: stand them up to do the right thing, stand up to end this war in Iraq. And so we are now called, as of this week, StandUpCongress.org. So welcome to the Anti-War Room. We have with us today Tom Mazzie, who is with MoveOn.org, one of our allies and one of the most active members of the Win Without War coalition. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
And Darcy Scott Martin, who people who are familiar with this website and these discussions from True Majority. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have this week, of course, a lot of things going on and off Capitol Hill. One of the things that we're talking about, obviously, is the scandal at the Walter Reed medical facility that continues to get headlines, continues to be a focus of Congress. Question for the two of you: when Hurricane Katrina occurred and we saw the dismal failure of government to deal with that catastrophe, that had wide-ranging political ramifications right across the board. Are we seeing a new Hurricane Katrina with respect to the treatment at Walter Reed? Darcy?
I think that there's certainly going to be turmoil related to this for a while and fallout, and it'll also happen across the country. As the child of a 32-year Marine and my brother's a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, the VA system structure has for a long time struggled and certainly had periods of funding ebb. There is no way they could have expected the capacity that they're going to have to absorb because of the damage that's happening during this war. And I think even more importantly, how it's going to play for the next 50 years, because we are going to be supporting these soldiers in a structure, a VA-like structure, for the next 50 years. And the amount of money that's really going to cost and the kind of structure we're really going to build for that, no one is facing yet, and it is going to be cataclysmic.
So this is one more example of not anticipating the consequences of action. You know, it's ironic that the day that the Congress voted to authorize the government to go in and attack Iraq, it also simultaneously cut veterans' benefits on that very same day.
It was October 10th of 2002. That's right.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a Katrina moment and or an Abu Ghraib moment. I think if you look back at the history of the war, the two big turning points in U.S. public opinion were Abu Ghraib and Katrina. And both of those stories had, they were tremendous tragedies in many ways, and they had very, very powerful visuals. I think it's interesting to see what is the visual that's going to be emerging out of the Walter Reed scandal. I think it's going to be the faces and voices of members of the armed services who are being treated at Walter Reed. And I think that's going to be a powerful reminder to the American people of the sacrifice that many people are going through because of the Bush's failed policies.
Now, you have a situation in which we've heard young people being promised the world when they go into the service and, of course, being disappointed. We have people going into harm's way, into combat, when they don't have adequate equipment, they don't have training, they don't have the rest in between deployments. Congressman Jack Murtha has made this a major point. He proposed that the Congress make that Army and Navy and Marine standard, that standard of readiness, put it into law and say you can't put troops into harm's way unless they meet the standard. That now has been under fire, as it were, politically in Congress. It appears as if Congress is backing off of that. Why is that? Why would Congress back off establishing that core standard of readiness as a requirement for the Army or Marines or Navy to put kids in harm's way? What's going on?
I mean, as best I can tell, it looks like high school politics, right? That it's just like someone didn't like that someone else had said something first. And it's completely ridiculous because these are proposals that are about mandatory troop protections. Congressman Murtha is proposing mandatory troop protections, and they're supported by unanimously by the American people. I don't know anyone who doesn't want our troops to be armored, equipped, trained, and well rested. And Congressman Murtha wanted to make that mandatory, and we are supportive of that, and he should still go forward and push for that. And Democrats should not be trying to weaken it, and Republicans should not be opposing it.
But why are they doing it? Why weaken this? What's going on? Why back off something that the vast majority, if not all the American people, believe is just common sense? Why would you put a soldier into harm's way unless they're prepared?
There seems to be quite a bit of infighting amongst pockets of folks in Congress who've had opinions about things along the lines of during the entire time that the war has been prosecuted, different issues that they have disagreed with, agreed with, and finally when Democrats have the majority, their disagreements become the public discourse of the day. When they were in the minority, those disagreements were much more glossed over. It's much easier to be in the minority to say, we're going to argue this point, we're going to argue that point, and kind of throw rocks at the big glass wall. But when you're in the majority, you become the owner of the wall. And how to move us forward in what we can understand in the big picture is wanting to say that this war is not being prosecuted in the way that it should be, and we need to make change of course, means you have to get a whole panoply of people who've been allowed to have varying positions come to the same spot. And it's a very difficult public thing that we're going through right now. There are just specific members who have their issues that they want to argue and discuss, and that's all being played out in this discourse.
Okay, so now the leadership of the Democrats are trying to tie all of these various ends of the caucus together so that they have one coherent and clear strategy. It's very interesting that when Congressman Murther came up on this website, came in and talked about this proposal, there was this massive attack, systematic attack by the Republicans, day after day after day. There was really no response from the Democrats. And then you have some of the conservative Democrats saying, no, we will be opposed to establishing those standards in law. And now you have the fraying of the caucus, and now, as you're saying, Darcy, the caucus is trying to, the leadership's trying to pull this caucus back together. One of the ways they want to do it, Tom Mazzie, is they want to establish, as we're understanding, benchmarks, performance benchmarks, put that in the law. Of course, the president, when he announced this surge strategy, he said we're going to hold the Iraqi government accountable. We're going to establish performance benchmarks so that we can gauge their progress forward. Democrats are saying, okay, let's put those benchmarks in law and link our support financially for this war to the capacity and performance of this Maliki government to meet those benchmarks. What do you think about that?
I think we've been hearing about benchmarks for 4 years, and for 4 years they've been meaningless part of the debate. I think benchmarks are fine as part of a timeline that has a date certain, but benchmarks on their own are insufficient. And what the Democrats should be doing is they should be doing mandatory troop protections. They should set a date certain, have a timeline that the Bush administration is held accountable for. And within that process, they want to have benchmarks also. That's okay. But there needs to be a date certain, and there need to be mandatory troop protections.
Darcy, what do you think?
Oh, I definitely agree. I think that it will be a high bar that's going to take a lot of effort on the Democratic side to get everyone to come to the table on that. And I think that what we will probably see is individual portions of that kind of plan come out and be tested. And will we get a vote on one particular part of that idea? Will we get, each line item vote to see how many people support that? And as each one gets its majority over time, then it'll be added to a larger message that we'll be able to push forward on, hopefully.
So this is a critical week. This is the time. This week, the Democratic leadership and then the caucus as a whole is going to establish a position, which will then go to the floor. It could happen as early as this week. That is to say, in the Appropriations Committee. Some are saying it may happen actually next week. But as we talk to our members, the Win Without War Coalition members, and there's an emergency conference, national conference call that will be happening today. I hear more and more. Look, let's just make it absolutely clear that we need to get out of Iraq, and that the time frame that we establish should be based upon how long will it take to safely, systematically get our kids out of harm's way. If it takes 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, the bottom line has to be, listen, enough is enough. It's time to end this adventure in Iraq, remove our troops, redeploy them systematically, and do it in a time frame that will keep them safe. Are you hearing the same thing? I mean, are we moving ultimately to that core position? And is that going to be, do you think, the demand of our community, of our coalition of groups to the Congress? I
think so. I think the basic part is the American people want, and what we all want, this is There's a great alignment between the American people and people who want to get out of Iraq. This is we are now the majority, and we want our troops to come home, but we want it to be done safely. We don't want Bush to be deploying troops that aren't equipped, ready, or trained. And the Bush approach is putting our troops in danger. We need a proposal that will protect our troops.
Okay.
And ironically, the public is far ahead of the Congress at this point on these issues. And I would say I'd want to be highlighting even more how far the Senate is behind. I mean, the House is at least having these discussions and having some votes and at least substantially engaging in this debate. On the Senate side, it's, a well of silence. And I think that they're going to find themselves laughably behind the American public.
And, the key here, the reason that this point in time is so important is because the Congress is the power of the purse, and the administration needs to have more money in order to continue this war. So the possibility of a filibuster, the possibility of stopping votes, the possibility of a veto, of course, is eliminated if you need the money to carry on the war. So this is the point at which Congress really can assert its authority and establish the conditions by which the administration is going to get this additional money. So the question for us, of course, some of our allies and groups are saying just vote no on any appropriation for Iraq. That might be an option for many of us. If it turns out that the Democrats actually weaken the supplemental appropriation, if they bend over backwards to accommodate those that support the war, you could end up with a national campaign, I would imagine, saying vote no on any supplemental. Or the alternative is to structure a supplemental in such a way as we're discussing right now. Invest this money in a way that will get our troops out of Iraq as safely and as quickly as humanly possible. So we have to see which way the caucus goes, and we're going to keep you informed. We're probably going to do this. We try to do this every week. I think we're probably going to do another one this week just because things are moving so quickly. This is a very, very important time. Any final thoughts, messages that people should be conveying to their members of Congress during this week?
No, I think that your point about voting no on the supplemental is important to understand. Is if this supplemental does not make the law of the land the beginning of the end of the war, with an absolute end at some point on the horizon that we can see in the bill, members of Congress who vote for it will be giving a blank check to the president. And I don't think that's what the American people elected this Congress to do.
So the bottom line is we need a supplemental that makes it very clear we're getting out quickly and safely around a very specific time frame. Is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't see how the American people will be happy with any other option.
Okay, so we're going to see what the caucus does. We'll be back and we'll talk more as we get more information. And Tom and Darcy, thanks a lot.